All right, so hi, my name is Manar, and I'm working with the Wisconsin Voices for Recovery to bring you Saturday night chat for people to share their recovery journey and to show people in and seek in recovery that they are not alone and that recovery is possible. So today we'll be hearing from Trinity. Trinity, thank you again for sharing your time and story with us. So to start off, can you tell us who you are, what you currently do, and what brought you here?
Well, my name's Trinity, and I am, let's see, have been, I like to say I'm working on healing. I've tried recovery, I think, my whole life, ever since I was younger. Well, I haven't tried, but I was kind of like forced into recovery when I was younger. So, I mean, I've been struggling with, with it off and on. And now that I'm older, um, I am just trying to change my life. I'm 50 years old. I have 6 children, and then 10 grandchildren. But when I got my first grandchild, that's why, I kind of made a turnaround. But yeah, I'm just trying to build a new life right now, and I recently moved and to a new area and getting a fresh start. And I just working, and I'm also a certified peer specialist.
Mhm.
I I got that certification last year, and it's taken a little bit to find work doing that, because I really want to help others that feel stuck in addictions or with their mental health, because I felt like I was never going to escape it. I never could imagine life not using.
Mhm.
And here I am, and I just remember feeling like if I were to ever escape, I wanted to help others. So, yeah, that's why I'm here and would like to share my story.
Well, I really appreciate you being here and sharing your story with us. How were you connected with the Wisconsin Voices for Recovery?
I've just been reaching out. I'm online a lot and trying to connect with others. Um, like I said, with the certified peer specialists, I trying to look into positions and where I can connect with others in recovery, service professionals or um, um, just situations, places, people that are on that same path, that are in that same mindset. And I actually, I think I came across Wisconsin Voices for Recovery online, and I checked out the website and found the YouTube channel. So I was watching the YouTube videos of, I think it was first Speak Out on Stigma, and I was interested. So I went back and to the website and submitted my interest to do that. So I did do that also, and then I saw the Saturday set this one, the longer one. So I figured I'd uh put in my interest to do that. And that's really kind of stepping outside my comfort zone. It's like in order for me to help others, I have to do that, like put myself out there. Otherwise, if I don't, I feel like if I don't share what I've learned or how I've grown, that's I just feel a responsibility to do it, and to share with others. And my personal opinion is like if I don't share what Creator has given me, which is forgiveness and this path, that if I don't share what I've given, that's like kind of being selfish. And so, I mean, it's kind of getting in the mindset, I'm really nervous and I can't, I'll honestly say that I almost didn't want to do this, but I know it's right. And so, yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad that you are here doing this, and it's also really great to hear that those videos and seeing other people with the YouTube channel has been helpful for you and empowered you to also share your story. I know you talked a little bit about like moving and things like that, but if you could tell us more about like your upbringing and a little bit more about like your road to recovery.
Um, well, I grew up, mm, I guess where else? I um I grew up with parents that struggled with alcoholism and addiction. And while I was younger, they uh they they were on the road to recovery too. And so my life was kind of like moving and going back and forth from my mom to my grandparents. And um I'd say when I was a teenager, my mom and my stepdad, became AODA counselors. And at that time, I was trying real hard to fit in. And I always thought I was kind of, just, I wasn't one to fit in, but I wanted to. And I had a hard time, I guess, with others thinking, I worried about what others thought as a kid. And having two parents for AODA counselors wasn't cool. So, I had to prove everybody that that wasn't me. And so, anyways, I partied a lot. And the very first time I drank and came home, the very next day, my parents put me into a adolescent treatment center at, I want to say 13. And that was just kind of like, I only did it one time, so why am I didn't feel like I belonged there. And it was all older kids and they had all these stories and I just kind of but so yeah, that was the beginning. And I think when I was 16 or 17 again, I was just rebellious. It's like you couldn't if they told me to do something, I wouldn't do it, or if they told me not to do something, I would do it. So they sent me to treatment again when I was 16, and I remember I wanted to not drink and behave and go to school. And so I also went to a adolescent halfway house. And I think I didn't come home for like 6 months, but I came home eventually and got back into the same old scene with my friends. And shortly after that, um, my mom had moved and I was staying with my stepdad. And I went to a party one night and I had gotten into a car and was in a car accident. And I ended up in the ICU. And my mom, I just my parents had that phone call where the police showed up. And they weren't sure if I was going to make it. But that was like a big event in my life. And I had lost movement in my hand. I had broken shoulder, and they had to do surgery on my liver because I had internal bleeding. And I was just all busted up at 16. And so after I got done out of the hospital, I didn't. go to school. I didn't want to go to school in that condition, and um, it's just been a long journey from there. I've been to treatment a total of 7 times, and this last time, mm, I I I think I had I was just done with it. But like I said, it's just a really, when I think back about all of it, I'm 50, and um I always thought that I'd look back on my life and I always had this, um when I had to do something, I would quit. I'd quit and I'd straighten up. I'd get my place, I'd get the job and get my life together and take care of my kids, provide a home and food on a table for my kids. And this last time I had got into opiates, I'd say in 2011. And that was different because I couldn't stop. My my I tried so many times to quit and say, hey, I gotta stop and I gotta get my life together, but I couldn't stop. It hurt. It physically hurt. And um I felt like, my body was addicted, and I had lost my job, my home, my relationship went to shambles, and I didn't have the funds to pay for let's see, what was I doing? I think I had like a $200 a day addiction to opiates, and I couldn't afford it anymore. But I still couldn't stop, and I still needed something that I didn't. So that's when I started using heroin and meth, and it was cheaper, and after a few years, I couldn't hold it together. I just wondered why I couldn't stop like I used to. And I ended up I would switch my use. I'd try and quit using, and then I drink because drinking is legal. So I ended up getting a few DWIs, and I get my DWIs, so I'd switch back to using, and it kind of went back and forth for years. But um I ended up being incarcerated, and that was kind of my wake up call, and where um I don't know. Can I like stop? I'm kind of like losing track of where I'm at, getting lost.
Yeah, that's okay. So I mean, you mentioned a lot of challenges of things that you've, faced with, recovery and some of the difficulties that you
Hmm.
had. On the flip side of that, what are some of your like success stories, things that went like different than how you expected it to be?
Um, because there's like so much that I want to say. I don't like getting caught talking about my past because it's like I've gone through all that already, and right now I'm kind of healing, and that's what I'm focused on. And when I look back in the past, it's like I'm looking back to find lessons.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I'm kind of like, I don't know, I'm getting lost describing where I came from because I'm just, um, I'm not there anymore,
Yeah. Yeah, which
you
is
know?
mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I want to switch gears
Yeah.
and, talk about where I'm at today
Mm-hmm.
and kind of,
Yeah.
but
So I
yeah.
mean, I today where if you could tell us about like people around you, your loved ones, friends, anybody really that has helped you through your road to recovery and is part of your life now.
Today, let's see, I feel, I realized that I didn't like feeling, like I said, I couldn't stop before, but I'm realizing that my using was the way I coped with things and dealing with traumas that I didn't even know I had until I started healing. A big thing that I worked on was I was a very angry person. I was angry at the world for everything, and I blamed everybody and everything, and and that's just a miserable life to live. And I was tired of it, because I couldn't, my kids were having kids and my grandkids, and I felt like I couldn't let them love me, because I was angry all the time and resentful and carrying all that around. And when this one just sticks out in my mind, it was like because I needed to get high so bad, I had started using needles. And when I went across the road from where I lived, my son was home and his father had just passed away. And he was sad. We were all sad. We were all going through it. And I was across the road, and it was just a place, people go to get high. And I'm sitting across the road with a needle in my hand, thinking I could die, looking at this thing because I didn't get it ready. Somebody got it ready for me. And I'm sitting there thinking, if I do this, then I'm going to leave my son, you know, and he's not going to have anybody. And so I'm looking at that and thinking of my son across the road and wondering why I can't stop. And what is what's the problem here? And I'd like to say that that's the day I sobered up and made a decision, but I didn't. I ended up using, and thankfully I didn't OD and I'm still here, but that was kind of my, like, questioning myself, why am I needing to get high so bad
Mhm.
that um I'm willing to leave my son. And um so I started to kind of slow quit, like work on it. I'd use, and then I wouldn't use for maybe a week or two and kind of work on things during that time. But it was a rough road, man. It
Mhm.
took me maybe a year or two to finally be done with using the the heroin, the meth, and I I had to have something, because it was just so overwhelming thinking, what am I going to do? I can't use anything. It was just too overwhelming for me to think of it like that. So I I continued to drink, and um on my oldest son's 21st birthday, we did a shot, and I had quit using needles or heroin and meth and the other drugs for about maybe less than a year, about 9 months. And on my son's 21st birthday, I had bought us a liquor bottle, and we did a shot on his birthday. And then I just remember thinking, what the hell, what is this? This is how we celebrate his birthday. Is this the kind of mom I want to be? And so I decided I was going to not drink anymore. And I continued to smoke weed. I felt like that was a medicine, if I had to grab something, that's what it was going to be. And I was never really a, a weed smoker, just because I'm kind of mellow anyways. I was more of like an up person, needing something for motivation. Um, so yeah, so I I quit. I kind of tapered off on my use, but during this time, it was like I stayed in for the first 6 months. I didn't want to go out and be tempted by anybody, and I was telling people they needed to get the F out of my house, and just kind of setting up my boundaries, like focusing, because I didn't want to be tempted, or the way I am, I can manipulate people into giving me what I want. And yeah, I was pretty good at that, manipulating and getting what I wanted and blaming people. Um, so during that time I was home, I would be aware of my feelings, and the feelings, that was the hardest part too, was recognizing feelings, dealing with all the shame of how I've been. And when it finally hit me, it was just like a ton of bricks of how I've lived and what kind of mom I've been, and um, selfish. And I started figuring things out, kind of digging to the root of things. And I would like, like anger, when I'd freak out over spilled milk or something, I'd have to walk away and calm myself down and kind of do a self-talk and figure out why I was angry.
Mhm.
What's the matter? And then I started timing it, like how long my anger would last, and then um kind of reflect and be like, notice that it got shorter and shorter, processing anger. And it was just a lot of self-work. And during the time when I was still smoking weed, I had got pulled over, and I had got my fifth DWI, and that was what was my prison sentence. And I didn't want to believe it. I'm like, it's weed. How can I get a DWI? And it was, but I went in. I got picked up one day driving outside the high school, and um, ended up going to jail and not coming home for 18 months. And that was hard. And while I was in there, I wanted to make the best of my time, because, when I was in there, it felt like a long time before I went in there, but when I went in there and realized that there's more people there with a lot more time than what I had to do, it made it kind of like, what am I crying about? I have nothing. This is, I'm kind of lucky, so um I worked out and I did a lot of um, running, um, exercising, and I had lost like 40 pounds and I was just in the best shape of my life. And when I got out, I wanted to continue that. And actually, while I was in there too, I practiced a lot of um, doing just making choices like meditating, um, meditating and not caring what other people thought and practicing that just because that's what I wanted to do when I got out. And what better place to practice doing what I wanted to do and without caring what people thought around a bunch of strangers, and so while I was in there, that's when I hooked up with a certified peer specialist and I would go once a week and her and I just made a connection in there. And I think that if she wasn't there for available for me to talk to every week, I think I would have ended up doing more time. It kind of kept me at an even keel and sane and knowing that I wasn't alone because she was also in recovery. And, but yeah, it just kind of kept me sane and on an even level there. Um, I practice a lot of um, con- not con- yeah, controlling over myself because I realize I can only control myself, my thoughts, and how I react. I don't have control over all these people around me. And so I did a lot of um, work on that while I was in there. And I also went through, that was my last treatment program, was the SUD program. And I did a lot of healing during that program. They say you get what you put into it, and I put everything into it. Um, just being as honest as I could, not as I could, but participated, and it was a really good group of women that I went in that program with, and we graduated, and it was an experience, and I am grateful that I experienced that, and not um, because I feel like it made me into a better person where I'm at today. And after I got out, I went home and it's a hard community, where I live, where I come from, and it's a hard community to heal in. And I come from a reservation up north, and there's a lot of intergenerational traumas that we're all going through. Everybody goes through it, but um, to acknowledge and realize you that a person is going through it, um, not everybody can do that, but I can being compassionate. That's where I'm trying to go is like realizing that we are all going through something, and you never know what somebody's going through makes it easier for me to show others compassion.
Yeah.
And um, so I tried to, and I can't drive for like forever for life, which is 10 years. And it just got too hard to get around. And I had to resign from my job. I was working at the women's shelter
Mhm.
and I was living 12 miles out of town. And, it was just too hard to get to work. So I resigned and I started working online. I started a website. I'm trying because I can't drive and transportation's limited for me. I'm trying to reach out online to people because I know there's other people too that can't get around or are at home isolating.
Mhm.
And if I can, and I wanted to connect with people that way.
Yeah.
So I started working more on my computer and I built a website and um that's my project I'm working on. And um I'm not trying to like promote it here or anything. Is it all right if I say the name?
Of course.
But it's Savage Truth 144 and it's an LLC I started.
Mhm.
And um it's work in progress. I've got a blog on there and um jewelry, but in clothing, and it's just the beginning. But like or it was just getting too hard to get around, and I needed to find income.
Yeah.
So I called a friend up to ask if I could come stay with her, and so I moved, and it was hard because my kids are still at home, and my youngest son just graduated, and which is kind of good because Um, I don't have young kids to worry about anymore, really. And I can I have more time and I can just do more and filling that time up um, this is just something that I want to do, like doing Wisconsin Voices for Recovery
Mhm.
and stepping outside my comfort zone and sharing my story in a nutshell.
Yeah. Yeah. So what would you say you are most proud of accomplishing in your journey so far?
I am proud of my healing
Mhm.
and changing, and because the healing that I heal in myself, like my spirituality is so strong. That's like the strongest um my strongest asset, or however you want to say it, is I'm very spiritual, and that reflects in my kids. They're learning uh to connect with creator. And my spirituality, it's kind of like a la carte. I meditate. That doesn't make me a Buddhist. I go to Catholic mass. That doesn't make me a full Catholic. I smudge. I put my tobacco down. I just choose, and I've read the Quran. I mean, I'm just kind of curious about all all things, and I kind of pick what I like, and anything that I choose to do, I feel like creator comes through it all, you
Yeah.
know. And I respect every like that was the one thing, was I was really angry at the Catholic Church, for the history of Native Americans and the boarding schools, because um, my family history comes through that. And um, and it's funny now that I'm baptized in Catholic and I go to Catholic mass,
Mhm.
but that took me um, learning about it. I wanted to learn because I was actually just kind of going off. I just wanted to know more about it. And
Mhm.
when I found out more about it and I felt connected through creator, learning about it, um, it took the blame away. I didn't blame anymore.
Mhm.
And I just kind of understand that. Um, I just understand a little bit more now, and I feel, um, what's the word I'm feeling? I feel knowledgeable about it, I guess.
Hmm.
And like today, today's Saturday, and I'm gonna go Catholic Mass is at 5:30, so I look forward to going. And but yeah, so that's the biggest thing I'm proud about is I'm learning to, instead of telling my kids what to do, I can't tell them because I have to lead by example. What I do, they're gonna do.
Hmm.
And it's really awesome to see when that happens.
What advice, or like words of wisdom would you offer to others that are currently, struggling?
Um, I would, you know, mm, I would just have to say that uh, it's possible. There's hope, and um, I felt like the worst person in the world, that I was different, that my situation was different, that I wasn't worthy enough, that Creator couldn't forgive me for the things I did, for the things I said. And um, it's kind of funny though when you realize that you're already forgiven for the things you did. You just have to learn how to forgive yourself first, and if you can find that grace, that forgiveness for yourself first, and um, that's, I think, the hardest step is forgiving yourself. And there's people out there too that are on the same path, that aren't trying to judge you, and I know there's like the stigma, and it's being, and that's the thing, like with healing for me is, it's not, I don't look at it as recovery. I feel like healing myself is the goal, and recovery is like a side effect that happens.
Mhm.
It comes along with it. I'm not focused on quitting, but I'm focused on healing, healing the things about me that um, I'm not happy with, or that's kind of making life hard. Um, but yeah, so self-forgiveness, just um, yeah, that's
Yeah.
we can.
You mentioned stigma.
Hmm.
Any, thoughts or advice on how people, like what people can do to reduce stigma when, especially when talking to their friends or loved ones?
Um, Maybe it's the language, because stigma's like stuck on the words,
Mhm.
like recovery, sobriety, drug addicts. It's stuck. And if we can use different words like healing, I'm on a healing path, not I'm recovering alcoholic, the labels.
Yeah.
And um, just if we can use different words, more compassionate words, it creates a new connection, instead of trying to fix what's already, I guess, what's already set in stone. Trying to change something that's already there, we can kind of create a new path, um, with language, and because I feel like language and thoughts come from language. That creates emotions, and if we can use more compassionate language, we can create stronger connections, authentic connections between each other. Um, but yeah, that's kind of like what I'm trying to work on
Mhm.
with my with the Savage Truth, is just trying to use different language, because for me it was recovery, like it was just kind of not beat into me my whole life, because I grew up with AODA counselors, but it was
Mhm.
just like thrown at me, and I didn't like it. And um, I was just like always told that if I didn't follow these steps or read the book, then I was doing something wrong. And and mm, I was just always determined to know that there's got to be another way.
Mhm.
You know, this can't be the only way, because I don't want to use and drink. I didn't want to use and drink my whole life. But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at now, is trying to connect with others on that same level, maybe because there's others too that I think feel like that it doesn't work for them. And I don't know, just create a new support system with different language and create a different vibe.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much, Trinity, for taking time tonight or today. I really appreciate your honesty, your strength, and just being open to sharing your story. It's a very powerful and impactful story, and I hope whoever is, listening and watching this video can, find comfort and in listening to what you had to say. So I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. I appreciate your patience and finally connecting together.